Hi everyone, it's Nicole for Simon Says Stamp with some vintage collage cards using the July 2023 card kit called Flower Happy. Each month I create cards using mostly the components from the kit with a few things from my stash. Today I'm going to be using 6 products from the kit, including this awesome Jubilee embossing folder with coordinating die. I'm also using the cream cardstock. I went ahead and die cut the Jubilee coordinating die first from the cream cardstock, and then I'm going to line it up with the die cut or the embossed shape, in that embossing folder and run it through my die cutting machine to emboss the shape. This is going to give us the beautiful embossed frame and florals. I like to do this after I have die cut the shape, as I find you get the best detail. My favorite sandwich for using the embossing folder is the platform, the embossing folder with your cardstock in it, and then 2 of the backers from some 3D embossing folders. I find that with my machine that gives the perfect tension to run it through my Spellbinders Platinum. After I have all 3 of my frames, because as always, I love to create more than one card at a time, I am going to trim down some of the pattern paper from the kit. I'm using the Bo Bunny Brighton 6x8 pattern papers. They are absolutely stunning. I also have more cards using this kit over on my YouTube channel. I loved everything about the kit this month. I thought it was super awesome, and those cards give a completely different look. So today I kind of wanted to do a vintage collage mixed media type look. I picked 3 of my favorite pattern papers from the kit and trimmed them to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. Now they look beautiful like this, but I want to grunge them up a little bit. So once I have everything trimmed down, I'm going to grab some walnut stain and some ground espresso distress inks, and we're going to ink up the backgrounds to give them more of that vintage feel. I'm going to use this awesome corner ink cube holder to hold my ink cubes in place while I'm working. You can see that it fits right around the Simon Says Stamp glass magnetic mat perfectly, and instead of having to chase my cubes all over the place, they just stay in place. Now this completely changes the look of our pattern paper. It definitely gives it more of that vintage antique-y type of feel, which is what I was going for today. Again, just showing the versatility in the kit. Then I'm going to take whatever ink is left on my blending brush, left over from those 2 colors, and I'm going to lightly ink up that cream cardstock die cut and embossed Jubilee square. Once I have that inked, I'm going to take some of my favorite foundry wax. This is the gilded color, and I just like to take a little bit on the tip of my finger and rub it over the embossed areas. Once I have that placed on just the embossed areas, I'm going to take my heat tool and set it. This is going to give us the beautiful gilding type effect on those areas and just draw more attention to them. There's lots of ways to use this embossing folder. This is just perfect for that antique look that I'm going for today. And the colors look beautiful. I think it all blends together perfectly. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for our other 2 backgrounds. Again, using walnut stain and ground espresso around the edges to change the color of our background pattern paper. This is a great way that if you have a pattern paper that maybe isn't exactly what you want it to be, you could achieve this look. And it doesn't have to be antique-y. It could be with colorful inks as well. Again, we're going to take the leftover ink and apply it to our cream square and take a little bit of that gilded foundry wax and apply it to the embossed areas. Now there are other colors of foundry wax as well. I felt like this worked best with my cards today, but you could definitely use any of your favorite color here. And if you haven't played with foundry wax, I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite products from Tim Holtz from this last year, I think. It's been out for a little while. We're going to do this now for this background, which I love this background because it already looks kind of like a pieced mixed media type background with all those different patterns, which I think is really, really lovely. Once we have all of our backgrounds and our squares inked and embellished, we're ready to build the rest of our cards. In the kit, you get some really amazing Tim Holtz Idea-ology collage strips. And I will tell you that they were the inspiration for this entire card. When I was looking at the kit and trying to figure out how I wanted to create something different than the other set of cards I created, what I came up with was something with the collage strips. They were my favorite product in this month's kit. And so what I'm going to do is take some of the more neutral brown strips, and I'm going to temporarily, or I'm actually not going to remove this tape them together instead of applying them to another piece of paper. Then I'm going to take a butterfly die. This is from the Graceful Butterfly 3D embossing set. We're not going to emboss this. I just like the size of this butterfly. And we're going to die cut the butterfly from those two strips that we have temporarily adhered together. This gives us kind of a mixed media effect butterfly, which I love. And that butterfly is going to sit right in the middle of our square. Now we can get probably 3 of the butterflies from this one, or from these 2 strips, pardon me. However, I really wanted to pick and choose, so I did get 2 from this one. And then I'm going to go ahead and tape together 2 more strips for my third. You could even go through your colorful strips if you wanted to. You can see all of those great collage strips here. Look how many you get. I have created 7 cards with just very minimum amount of these collage strips, and I still have all of these left over. So I really wanted to kind of showcase that. If you wanted to maybe go a little bit brighter, I just felt like the browns really worked better with the background I was doing here. But I wanted to show those to you here on camera. So I'll go ahead and die cut the rest of my butterflies. And then we're going to do the same thing that we did for our Jubilee embossed frame. We're going to take a little bit of the gilded foundry wax and apply that around the edges. And then we'll heat set it. With the foundry wax, I want to let you know that you always have to heat set it, otherwise it is going to just rub off. That is going to give you that beautiful gilded type effect, and I really love that it's very imperfect and kind of organic, I guess. I love the effect that it adds to cards. We're even going to do one of my favorite things to do with the foundry wax, which is splatter. Now it does dry really quick, so my advice is to always work pretty quickly. Now I have a confession to make. As I was making my cards and I went to put a little bit of the foundry wax like on my finger, which I like to put it on my ring finger. Your ring finger is, you can see it splattered right there, is your finger that has the least amount of pressure. It's the one you should use when you're putting like under eye cream and things on so that you're not pulling on your skin. I do the same thing with the paper. But my foundry wax wasn't coming out, and the reason it's splattered and the reason it's okay, because I was going to add splatter to my backgrounds anyway. You can't see it in the frame of the camera, but I literally, you guys, I squeezed the bottle too hard and a huge amount splattered on my glass mat. So I am going to end up using it because I am adding splatter, but I worked fairly quickly. You can see I'm just picking it up off my mat and placing it around. I normally don't put that much out at a time, but it happens, and it happened while I was filming, and so I decided to just roll with it because these things happen. Go ahead and add it to, look how pretty those butterflies are. Aren't they fun? Just a really fun way to be able to utilize the collage strips for something completely different. So after we have that, as I mentioned, I am going to take and use my splatter box and pick up some of the remaining foundry wax and tap it all over this background with a small paintbrush. And it's hard to see the splatter right now, but again, remember, you want to heat set this. We're going to heat set it, and we're going to end up with gilded splatter all over the background, and it is going to look so pretty, and it ties in really nicely to the other areas of our card. We're just going to tap this on. And heat set. And I'm going to do this for all three backgrounds. Then we're going to put them all together. I kind of felt like with the busy pattern paper background and then our busy butterfly, we need to lift it up off of the background just a little bit to really make it stand out. My favorite way to do this is to use foam adhesive. Foam adhesive is such a fantastic adhesive to have in your arsenal at all times, because it really does kind of help lift or separate the fact that we have so much busyness going on. I also went ahead and took a Hello script die, and I have die cut this from some of that rose gold metallic cardstock that's included in the kit. I love this, and I think it really kind of ties in beautifully with the rest of the components. I die cut the butterfly body from the rose gold metallic cardstock as well. I'm going to place those foam adhesive squares on the back of the embossed square, and then we're going to adhere that in the upper half of our card. I'm trying to just eyeball that the top and the sides are kind of even. With the florals in those two corners, it's a little hard to tell, but I think this is going to look really pretty. So we're just going to pop that down. If you want a little less busy card, your little square here would be perfect for a sentiment. You could stamp one of the sentiments in the included stamp set in the kit and maybe emboss it with antique gold. I think that would be super pretty, and adhere it, or pardon me, stamp it and emboss it right there, and maybe add just a few little embellishments, and you could be done with just that. Now, I did decide I need to pop up my hello. I really wish I would have thought of this before, but since I didn't, I just went ahead and I have some of the Simon Says stamp foam, and I have some adhesive on one side of the foam, and I die cut it using that same die. And I'm going to adhere my rose gold metallic greeting on top of this. This is going to be placed right underneath our square. Now, I felt like it needed the foam adhesive or to be popped up a little bit so it didn't get lost into the background, and it just feels like it flows a little bit better, I guess, with the rest of the elements. And I'm just using something sharp to peel away that stick-it paper that I have on one side. Just some sticky adhesive kind of helps with that. Now, ideally, I would have adhered my rose gold cardstock to the fun foam before die cutting, but like I said, I didn't think of it in time. So I'm just going to make it work. We're going to tuck our hello right underneath. I love how some of the florals in our Jubilee square hang over the greeting. I don't think it hinders the sentiment at all. We will be adding a small sentiment strip at the very end. I'm going to go ahead and assemble all of them at one time. I also want to take our graceful butterfly and adhere the body of the butterfly. And that is from that metallic rose gold. I'm going to glue the body in place, flip it over, and I'm going to put foam adhesive on the outer corners of each wing. I'm going to put some liquid glue in the center of the butterfly and place that down where it goes. I'm going to take the You're the Best sentiment and I am going to stamp this with ground espresso ink on some of that leftover cream cardstock. I'm going to do this 3 times and then die cut my sentiment with one of my favorite sentiment labels dies. You could use any brown ink for this, but since I had ground espresso already out and I used it for inking up the edges of my pattern paper panels, I felt like this was perfect. I'll go ahead and die cut each of the greetings. I like to line up one side with one end of my die, run it through, and then flip my sentiment around and just barely cut the other side. I'm just going to trim that down too. I like for my sentiment strip to go through vertically instead of trying to run it through horizontally. I'll be popping up each sentiment with a little bit of foam adhesive as well, and I do want to ink the edges. It's awfully bright cream colored and everything else on our card is grunged up, so we definitely want to grunge the edges of our sentiment strip. We're going to take that ground espresso and just go around the edges direct to paper. I just love how this kit can go from kind of like bright and fresh to very vintage so easily. We'll line up our greeting. It really just fits perfectly kind of between the loop or that tail in the H and the tail in the L. I love this. This is from the modern, let me tell you, Elegantly Modern Greetings stamp set. And here is a look at all 3 finished cards. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube for your convenience. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.